I'm going to begin with a little bit of a personal story of how my morning started, and then move into a meditation, and then into some teachings tonight, opening up the beginnings of the teachings on the 37 factors of awakening, or the 37 factors of enlightenment this evening. But here's a story from the wacky, wonderful world of Cheryl's house. So this morning, I got up as per usual, had a cup of tea with my partner. He headed off to work, and I got the dogs all geared up and got all my rain gear on, and was going to take them to the beach for an hour and then come back and begin my work day today. And just when I was passing through my living room, any of you who've been to the home for an advanced Dharma class or a Wankor when we had Lama Mark here years ago, know the layout of my home. I was passing through the living room, through the bedroom to take the door outside to head down to the beach. I'm very lucky to live just a few minutes from the beach. And the cat came bursting in the cat door. I know, this nefarious cat, hey? Mr. Faust, he came bursting in the cat door with a large rat in his mouth, which has been a mainstay of our winter and fall and even summer season so far. I think this cat has brought to the end about 30 or 40 rats. Apparently live by the ocean, there's lots of rats. So difficulty was this time, he brought the rat in and let it go, started batting it with his feet. And of course, the rat, being a sentient being who wishes not to suffer, took off and ran under the couch. So there I am. There's a live rat. I'm not squeamish about rats. They don't bother me. And as I like to joke, I'm a psychologist. We love rats. Early psychologists built their careers on training rats to go through mazes. They don't make me squeamish. I don't find them distasteful, but I'd rather there wasn't a live one running around in my house. So I stood there, and do I try to tear the couch apart and catch this rat? I am opposed to kill traps, and we don't have a live rat trap yet. We have live mousey traps, because the cat also brings in mice, and usually they go for the peanut butter, they get caught, and we let them go. So in this moment, I had a choice, didn't I? The choice was, do I attempt to find this rat and catch it and let it go? Or do I go to the beach as planned with the dogs and let nature take its course, allowing my living room to be much like the plains of the Serengeti when I've had the distinct pleasure to go on safari in Africa? So I went, and I came back thinking, poor rat, may you awaken swiftly, but probably I'm going to come back to a dead rat. Well, you can guess how the story ends. I came back to no sign of a rat, dead or alive, and a very lazy cat fast asleep on the chair. Fast forward to this evening as we gather at 6:30. Somewhere in the house, there's a rat. I don't know where. I think it's meditating. It's being super quiet. But this is the nature of reality. And I thought that might be a lovely way to introduce the meditation tonight, because taking this little silly slice of life from all things at the Cheryl and Richard house, our minds are much like my house right now. My house, somewhere in it, has a rat that shouldn't really be there. The rat is neither good nor bad, but it is a disturbance in terms of the home. It would be better that the rat safely and well go on its way and live its life outside in the forest. So that is very much like a negative or an unhelpful or a distracting or a disturbing mind state. So we can think of them for tonight's edification as the rats in our mind. Now, I don't want to kill the rat. I don't want to create any suffering or pain for the rat, but I would like to gently but firmly remove the rat without harming it and place it outside of my mind. So take that as a slightly tongue-in-cheek and slightly fun analogy for working with the mind. We want to seek for the wildlife in our mind that is not wholesome in our mind. We want to seek for the rats that have been unleashed because someone or something's brought them in and dumped them there. Not ever really true, but we'll go with it for now. We've created them. We've gone looking for rats by going through things in our past or thinking about things that upset us, or cultivating, sort of digging, excavating for pain points, or the time you did this or the time you didn't go that. And they're much like the rat in my house. He's an innocent bystander, or she, excuse me, don't mean to be rat sexist. The rat was living its life, minding its own business, much like a thought, until something clung onto it and brought it and deposited it somewhere that it could create a bit of trouble. When do we do that? When do we become a cat that searches the forest of our mind hops upon a rat, an injured feeling, a story about the future, a fear of what's happening in the world. And we catch the rat, we bring it in and we dump it in our own mind. And then we're aghast that it's running loose in there, potentially creating chaos. So there's a bit of a real world preamble for how we can think of our mind, the rats within them. The rats themselves are innocent. The rats themselves can be quite fine. But what do we choose to do with them? Don't eradicate them with poison. Don't fight disturbance with poison. It just creates more poison. Don't eradicate a disturbance with a killing blow. Don't use anger against your own mind states. How many of us are guilty of that? Probably all of us, almost for certain all of us, that we get angry at our own mind when we feel anxious, or we feel sad, or we feel kind of paralyzed and we don't know what to do. We get angry at ourselves. Oh, I can't make up my mind, or why do I feel so depressed, or why can't I just be happy? Well, instead of meeting the mind rats, the mind disturbances with dismay and dislike, how about we strive to meet the disturbances with kindness? We try to find the disturbance. If it's not helpful, I don't feel it's helpful for me to have a live rat in the house at this time. But can we gently and compassionately find the disturbance and carefully and kindly let it go? Let it go. Cease clinging. Without destroying it or hanging on to it, can we let it go? So there is your preamble from the plains of the Serengeti, alias Maple Bay. So a meditation. I think what I'm going to focus on tonight, I have a few things in mind, but I'll teach a few classes on this over the next month or two. So for tonight, I think I'm going to settle on the 7 factors of enlightenment. I'm going to briefly introduce the 37 factors. Neil very kindly, at my request, sent out a handout on the 37 factors in the last newsletter. If you didn't see it or download it, no problem. You can get it later. You do not need it for this class, but it may be useful supplemental reading for some of you. So I'm going to briefly talk about the 37 factors of enlightenment. And then for this evening, I'm going to focus on one of the 37, the sets of 4 and 5 and 7, which is the 7 factors of enlightenment. So preview of coming attractions. Why am I telling you now? Because I'm going to lead us now into a meditation, and I'm going to guide us through a practice utilizing breath, using mindfulness of breath. And then I'm going to drop in a question, and then another question, and then another question for each of us to ask ourselves silently as we're in the meditation. And those questions are going to help us start to look for the qualities of awakening in our meditation and in our mind. Don't worry, you don't have to know anything. This could be your very first time. It's perfect. I will guide you through it. So let us begin our meditation. I will ring a bell, set an aspiration, and we will continue. For the benefit of all beings, sharing this beautiful meditation together, may it lead to a reduction of the rats in our mind. May we bring compassion towards our states that are challenging, and may we learn to let go for the benefit of self and for all beings. All right. So I invite each of us where we are, in our seat, on our cushion, in our couch, maybe standing. A few of you, if you're sleepy, may find a standing meditation beneficial. Most of us are probably seated. And I invite you to start to move into mindfulness of breath, using breath as the anchor. And from mindfulness of breath, I'm going to drop in these questions and a little bit of guiding to sort of help us survey the landscape of the mind and see if we can touch on some qualities of these 7 factors of awakening. But let's begin. Most of you may find this most helpful if you focus on your breath with your eyes closed for this particular meditation this evening. So beginning, feeling your body in the chair, making any adjustments that will help support an alert and yet relaxed posture. I'm gently raising my shoulders, rolling them back and letting them slide back down. I'm gently raising my shoulders, rolling them back and letting them slide back down, because I tend to round my shoulders if I'm not being attentive. And by raising them, rolling them back and letting them slide back down, I correct the posture, and I also open up the heart and the breath. Checking in with your belly. If you're wearing trousers that are tight or have a button, a snap, a zipper, you may want to loosen that button and allow the belly to open up, to drop. You should suddenly look 3 or 4 months pregnant, and I'm not teasing. As you relax the abdominal muscles, the belly should fall open. Even if you're a very thin person, the belly should fall open like a pot. Checking in with the position of your head and neck and chin, that your head is floating, so to speak, on the spinal column, relaxed yet alert. And imagine a touch of a smile on your lips. You can just imagine it, or you can place a touch of a smile. This softens the face, opens up some of the biochemistry, and has been shown in ancient teachings and modern teachings to help the mind settle a little bit. Touch of a smile. And then for the purposes of this evening's practice, I suggest you select a place to focus, and focus on the sensations of breathing in and breathing out. And the 3 traditional places, you may choose one, is to focus on the heart, the chest, the diaphragm, breathing in. Notice any subtle movements in the chest or diaphragm. Breathing out, notice any subtle movements. You may or may not notice movements. Each breath is different. The idea is to be curious and to investigate. Or you may choose the belly. It may be more grounding. If the mind is agitated, a bit worried, anxious, busy, you've just come in from a busy day, maybe a work day, it may be helpful to choose the belly, as that can, for some of us, be more grounding of a mind that's more agitated or active. And in that case, you take the belly as your focal point. You would rest your mind's attention on the belly, focus on the belly. And as you simply allow the body to breathe in and out, you're not trying to change the pace of the breath. You're not trying to breathe deeply or any such. You're allowing the body to simply breathe. The only efforting you're making is directing the attention gently to the belly, or the chest, or the tip of the nose. The tip of the nostrils can be a very good place to focus. For a few people, that will help calm an agitated mind. For others, that will increase the agitation, and the chest or belly will be more grounding. If the mind's sleepy or dull or tired, you may want to choose the tips of the nostrils, the tip of the nose, and attend to the sensation of breathing in and breathing out. Nose, chest, or belly. If you're confused what to do, just pick your chest. And settling in a relaxed yet alert posture. Simply being breathing. Nowhere to go and nothing to do. Just allowing the body to breathe and applying a small bit of effort to begin. The effort of inviting the attention, directing the attention to focus at the tips of the nostrils, the chest, or the belly. Pick one now and stick with it through this guiding. And what am I attending to? You may ask if you're newer to the practice. For this purpose of tonight, I'm inviting you to pay attention to the physical sensations in the body, at the belly, chest, or nostrils, as you simply allow the body to breathe in and breathe out. This becomes your focal point. Mindfulness of sensations of breathing in the body. And if the mind wanders into thinking or is distracted by sounds or physical sensations other than those associated with breathing, no worries. Redirect the attention. Begin again with the current breath, focusing with a little more intensity, a little more effort on the sensations of the current single breath. And then repeat. And at the moment, we're practicing the quality of mindfulness, paying attention, being aware of the sensations with this breath, this single breath right now. Mindfulness of the breath at the nostrils, the chest, or the belly. Mindfulness, the quality of mindfulness, experiencing in the mind, in the meditation right now, what that quality feels like. And mindfulness here is the quality of observing without judgment or trying to change anything, without story making or embellishment, observing the sensation of breath. And now I will suggest, I will advise, can we add a little bit of curiosity? Well, what does that mean? Mindfulness can sometimes slip into a dispassionate observation. There's value to that. But now let's make it a tiny bit more active. And I invite each of us for the next few minutes to become curious, to investigate, to be a bit of an experimental researcher, curiosity or investigation of what each breath feels like. Is it a long or a medium or short inhale? Is it a long, medium, or short exhale? How does the mind feel on this in-breath? Does it feel pleasant, calm, agitated, sad, busy, still? A little bit of curiosity about the quality or associated factors of this particular in and out breath, and we'll explore that for a couple of minutes quietly. mindfulness, awareness, observing, and then curiosity, a little more active, a little more exploratory. Instead of letting the mind wander, asking the mind to become curious about the qualities of this particular breath. You're giving the mind something wholesome to do while practicing anapanasati, or mindfulness of breath. And then the next step, you can do these in any order. The next step is to increase the effort a little bit, increase the energy a little bit, increase the brightness a little bit. In other words, perhaps if you take this gently, not forcefully, try a little harder, be a little more intent on asking that attention to pay attention to the physical sensation of breath at the nostrils, heart, chest, or belly. Instead of kind of chilling out and letting the mind drift, which isn't meditation. It has some value, it can be relaxing, but it isn't meditation. You're sharpening with a bit more effort, a bit more energy. If you're sleepy, I invite you to sit up a little straighter. If you're fatigued, sit up a little more straight. Take 1 or 2 deep breaths to bring some oxygen into the body if you're sleepy or tired. And sometimes it helps to gently open the eyes, get a bit of brightness, a bit of light in if the mind is sluggish. And for the next few minutes, focus on a little effort, a little energy, a little more enthusiasm in your pursuit of this simple but deceptively profound task of attending carefully with mindfulness, with curiosity, and now with some effort or focus to the quality of each breath. Bringing a bit more intention, a bit more A game to the practice of meditation, and a little more effort. very pleasurable. So now I invite each of us to kind of check out our own mind, our own experience with a view to seeking or noticing or cultivating a quality of pleasure in the mind, pleasure in the breath, a little bit of joy or interest or enjoyment. Taking this single breath right now and choosing to decide to experience this breath as pleasurable. Even if the mind is in distress or turmoil, you may surprise yourself to find that under the clouds of the tumult, there's also the pleasurable stillness, like the ocean below the crashing waves on the surface. So even if it seems impossible, the idea of feeling any pleasure right now, if in this moment the mind is consternated, take it as a curiosity and explore whether you can find any sensations of pleasantness, pleasure, or even joy, goodness, enjoyment in the breath and in the body as you simply attend to breathing in and breathing out. And now inviting each of us to explore and open up to and see if we can contact the sensation, the experience of tranquility or peacefulness. Again, even if there's a storm, as there's been on the South Island, some wind and the ocean being rough, if we were to drop down under the ocean like a diver, a few feet or meters down, there would be a stillness under the turmoil on the top. Your mind is often like that. So spending a few moments opening up with curiosity, with willingness to explore and see if we can touch feelings, sensations, experiences of tranquility or peacefulness or calm. And now, sort of boring in with concentration, exploring concentration for just a few handfuls of breath. Can you really focus? Can you tighten the focus, like taking the guitar string and tuning it a little more tightly so it's perfect for the note? Focusing in on the minutia of the sensation of this single in-breath and this single out-breath. Focus, steadying the mind, applying some of that effort or energy and choice, that if the mind starts to wander, you catch the mind and gently, firmly redirect it immediately to the sensation of breath at the nostrils, heart center, or belly. If the mind is drifting, maybe lean forward slightly and focus more tightly, concentrating on this single breath. And then for the last few moments of this meditation, letting all of that go and simply being breathing, noticing without grasping the experience of what it's like to be simply breathing, not indulging the mind in fantasy or daydream, but loosening the reins and being comfortable with whatever arises and passes away, without clinging or rejecting. Simply being breathing, whatever arises and passes away has nothing to do with me. I'll leave it be as I simply coexist with things as they are. Just be with whatever's arising, whatever's passing away. Well, thank you, faceless, beautiful people, for sharing that meditation together. And I'd be interested to hear in the chat box, if you wish, any experiences you had. Was one quality a little easier than another? Was it easy to be curious but difficult to be calm? How does the heart feel? There's no need to share, but if you wish to, sometimes it's helpful for another meditator to hear about your experience. Thank you, Inga, for your sweet words. I'm going to teach a little bit by way of introduction this evening on the 37 factors of enlightenment or awakening, and then the 7 factors of enlightenment, which some of you realize I just took you through in that meditation. 7 blessed qualities of mind. Jackie had a lovely nap. Sometimes that happens, well-intentioned. Total unconsciousness. I disagree. Total unconsciousness is not possible until you're a corpse, but it may have felt that way. Neil has a warm, big heart. So just taking time to come to meditation has been of value for him. I think you needed to come a little late tonight, Neil, because of work. So to come in from the busyness of work, or perhaps remote virtual work, that sense of just sinking in. Very good, very good. So imagine that you're a visitor from another planet and you've arrived on planet Earth, but it's you, and you've arrived here not knowing what it is, and 2 people come up to you and they both have a free map for you. And the first person says, I have this map, Cheryl, that if you take the map, it's freely offered. It is going to show you a map of how to be happy, how to be filled with compassion, how to deal with the inevitable ups and downs, gains and losses of the world, of life, of a human body, of a relationship. It's going to show you qualities you can practice that will give you a beautiful mind and a beautiful heart and a beautiful life. That's the first map. The second person says, boy, do I have a deal for you. Here I have a map, and it will show you how to get wealthy and how to get ahead and how to buy lots of really nice things and how to keep a beautiful figure till you're old, and so on and so on. But it won't necessarily make you happy, and it won't necessarily give you good relationships, but boy, will you ever live in a nice castle filled with awesome stuff. Which map would you choose? And I'm not going to ask you which map you might have chosen when you were 21, but I'm going to ask you what map you might choose now. I think we're all very wise. And as Meg says, map number 1, please. Of course we would. There's no masochists or total fools on this call. And if so, you're very welcome. We'll be happy to help you uncover a few of the clouds to the sun underneath. But of course we would want the map that says, here are qualities, here are roads to take, here are vehicles to drive that will lead you towards more and more inside, more and more towards the qualities of grace, happiness, compassion, love, and acceptance. These are the 37 factors of enlightenment. Well, Neil, no, at the Mahamudra level, there's no difference, but don't get smart alecky. And Carolyn says, amazing how many different qualities there can be in a single breath. And she enjoys, with a tad of healthy clinging, the tranquility and the happiness. So think of this 37 factors of awakening, 37 factors of enlightenment, depends on the translation. What this is, and that's why we included the handout in the last newsletter, we'll include it again. It's a handout that Lama Mark has pulled together. There are many different sources for this, but I just appreciated he'd pulled together a brief survey. And so I decided to share that one with you with his permission. Any of you who were at Lama Mark's teachings in mid-September this year, when we actually gathered, massed and whatnot at Bethlehem Center, you already have this in your booklet that Cheryl and Neil and Shelley and the rest put together for you. Any of you who don't have it and would like to take a look at it, you can go back into your email and pull up the newsletter that Neil sent the day before yesterday, and you can print it out. Again, it's not necessary for tonight at all, but if you'd like to review what the 37 are, there's a 9-10 page handout for you. Now, the Buddha taught, the historical Shakyamuni Buddha taught in lists. He taught the 4 this, the 8 this, the 6 this, the 7 this, the 5 this. And there were a number of reasons for this. I think there's a clarity of mind when we say these are the 4 factors of this. Let's explore them. Here's the 7 factors of that. Let's explore them. Here's the 3 poisonous mind states. Here's the 5 skandhas. The other reason to remember at a very practical level, when the Buddha was teaching 2,600 years ago in India and possibly parts of Nepal, as best we know, there were no iPhones, obviously, to take notes on or record. There were very few people were literate. Very few people would have had the means to write anything down. So it was an oral teaching. It was an auditory teaching. It was, thus have I heard. Each sutta begins with the phrase, thus have I heard. This is taken from the notes I took at a Dharma talk. Thus have I heard. Now, any of you who've ever studied acting or had to memorize a poem the way my grade 8 English teacher made us do, know that if you're going to memorize something, repetition is very helpful. Chunking is very helpful, and lists are very helpful. So that's one of the many explanations for why the Buddha taught in these lists and sets of factors for us to study. So the map, you've come to this planet, you would like to be happy, free, generous, kind, loving, and awake. You'd like to move towards full awakening. You'd like to liberate the elephant. You'd like the sun under the clouds of confusions and poisons to shine brilliantly. Give me the map that tells me, so I don't have to co-create it in this life. I don't have to spend every waking minute of every second figuring out something that otherwise people have already figured out. Give me the map, give me the teachings, and hopefully, as all of you are doing right now, by choosing to spend a portion of your Monday here together, you've chosen to say, I want to study the teachings of mind. I want to study how to be happier, more fulfilled, more compassionate, less affected by the ups and downs of the world. I want to have a stronger, happier mind and heart. So those are the 37 factors. And to briefly review them, the 37 factors include the Eightfold Path of the Fourth Noble Truth. And I'm going to teach on that next class, I think, the Eightfold Path. The 7 factors of enlightenment. I'm going to teach a bit more about those tonight. The 5 strengths and the 5 spiritual faculties, which are very similar, but we'll differentiate them in another class. The 4 bases of magical powers, also called the 4 powers or the 4 supreme powers. The 4 right efforts, which I taught last week, 2 weeks ago, last class. I'll mention those in a moment. The 4 factors of mindfulness, of which we practice 1 or 2 of tonight. Taken together, that's 37 different factors or qualities or types of mind training. Last class, 14 days ago, I taught about the 4 right or wholesome efforts, and that's 4 of these 37. And that, to remind those of you that were there and to bring the rest of you who were not there up to speed, very simple concept. The 4 right efforts, 2 are to work on positive mind states and 2 are to defend against or reduce negative mind states. That equals 4. The 4 right efforts include when there is a good or a wholesome mental quality present, one of the efforts we make is to attempt to sustain that quality and keep it going. So if there's a quality of peacefulness in the mind, we want to apply effort to keep the peacefulness going. Now, if there is not a positive quality in the mind, the second effort is we want to apply effort to help create positive qualities in the mind. If the mind is neutral, or maybe even negative, we can seek to create a positive quality. We all know that. If you're a tiny little bit irritated or a tiny little bit impatient, and you know that doesn't feel very nice, you can deliberately cultivate patience. You can deliberately cultivate calm. You can deliberately think of a nice memory or scratch your cat under the chin, unless it's brought you a rat lately. And you can cultivate a good quality. So the first and second of the right efforts, or the wholesome efforts to make, are to, if there's a good quality present in the mind, make effort to keep it going, nurture it. The second is, if there's not a good quality present in the mind, make effort to cultivate it, to bring it to fruition, to invite it into the mind. And the third and fourth right efforts, this is a review of the class from 2 weeks ago, are if there is a negative, unwholesome quality in the mind, make effort to reduce and eliminate it. So if you're feeling angry, You might make effort to reduce or eliminate that negative mind state by going for a walk, having a stretch, having a nice cup of tea, stop rehearsing the negative story that's fueling the anger, and so on. You'll make the effort to reduce and let go of a negative mind state. And the fourth effort is if there's an arisen unwholesome state, you want to get rid of it. And you also want to make effort to guard the gates of your mind and to try to prevent unwholesome mind states from arising. I was working with someone today who went home for a family get together a couple weeks ago. The states are a little more, shall we say, lax about that than we are. And in terms of COVID, I guess, I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying 7 or 8 family members from around the US flew to one place to visit their mom, which we're trying not to do in Canada right now. So she did that and she went back. Her mom's a distressed person who is 70 and has some, I would say, mental health issues. And there were some huge family blowups and some arguments. So those are arisen negatives. But the fourth effort is to try to prevent negative from arising. So when we're aware of certain qualities, certain people, certain things we do, certain programs we watch, or certain news we expose ourselves to can arise negativity in our mind. We make effort, if we're wise, if we want to seek peacefulness, happiness, compassion, and awakening instead of misery and self-flagellation, we attempt to prevent negative mind states from arising by being wise and making good choices. So that's 4 of the 37. Review of 2 weeks ago. Tonight, I want to teach briefly, because we're already 50 minutes in. I'll probably just teach for 10 to 20 minutes here on the 7 factors of enlightenment. And many of you, to my honor, privilege, and delight, have attended a 10-day retreat at the Hermitage in years gone by. And often in the last several years, one of the through lines I've built into that 10-day retreat at the Hermitage on Denman Island is a review of these 7 factors of awakening, or these 7 factors of enlightenment. So they may be familiar to some of you, and there's no time like the present than to review them. Also, you're all very clever monkeys. Some of you realize I took you through the 7 in the meditation. Why? Because sometimes just grounding it in the simplicity of the actual experience of seeking, looking, observing, uncovering, and cultivating those 7 factors is even more powerful, especially because I did it before I taught about them, than simply hearing about them. The 7 factors of enlightenment, 7 of the 37 qualities we're going to be studying over the next series of classes. We will be announcing some classes. I'll teach at least 2 in December and maybe even a little more frequently in the new year, to be determined. And it looks like certainly for the next month, they will be online, and maybe for the next few months. And then hopefully, maybe in the early spring, we will be able to judiciously and carefully meet at a center, to be determined. But I very much look forward to that when the time is safe and right. What are the 7 factors of awakening? The first one, which you can think of as the fulcrum point of the 7, is mindfulness. You've got 3 active ones and 3 gentle or non-active qualities. And then you've got mindfulness, which is the one on which the other 3 and 3 teeter-totter, so to speak. Don't worry too much about that, but some of us find that a very useful concept. I'll explain it a little bit better in a moment. So we'll start with mindfulness. Mindfulness is sati in the Pali language, S-A-T-I, and it is the noting practice, and many other things, of paying direct attention to what's actually happening without embellishment, story making, judgment, aversion, meaning you don't like it so you push it away, or clinging, oh, I really like it, I want it to stay. It's the attempt to be mindfully aware of what's actually happening. You can be mindfully aware of eating your supper. You can be mindfully aware of a kiss. You can be mindfully aware of taking a shower. But historically, one of the very excellent, useful ways to practice mindfulness is to be mindfully aware of the act of breathing, particularly focusing on the sensations in the body of breathing in and breathing out, which is what we began with tonight. So we want to be attentive to the present. Well, that sounds bloody simple, and we're so used to hearing it, it's become almost something that we don't think about or really understand. What does it mean to be attentive to the present? It means almost all of our active thinking is not about the present. Almost all of it is about the future, planning, thinking, oh, I should get cat food tomorrow, I'm almost out. That's neither negative nor positive. It's a fine thought to have, especially for the cat, although apparently mine doesn't need food. He catches his own. But anyway, planning, worrying, thinking about, anticipating. Some of it can be positive. Some of it's very important. If you're almost out of gasoline, planning to stop at the gas station tomorrow on your way somewhere is really wise. But it's not present. Okay? And a whole heck of a lot of our thinking is about the past, reviewing something that's happened. Sometimes that's helpful. I got to prepare my taxes in the next couple of weeks to hand them to the bookkeeper. I'm going to go back to the past and code my bank statements and go back to the past. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But when we're being mindful, we want to do our darndest to be in the present, neither in the future nor the past, cultivating that quality of direct attention and experience of this breath right now. That is the first of 7 factors of enlightenment. Now I'm going to say something almost heretical in the modern mindfulness movement, and I don't mind being a heretic because there's a difference between Dharma and mindfulness. Mindfulness is not enough. That's the heretical statement. Mindfulness is not enough because a surgeon is hopefully mindful. They're very good at being present as they cut, moving around that artery, being very careful to do the correct thing. They're hopefully not daydreaming about tomorrow. They're hopefully not worrying about what happened yesterday. They're present, focused, and alert, very mindful. As is often taught, I first heard it from Phillip Moffit. It's hardly an original idea. It may be from the historical Buddha as well. A thief can be very mindful. Think of these Mission Impossible movies where somebody's breaking in to steal the Mona Lisa. And there's all those laser beam, red crisscrossing motion sensors, you know what I mean? And they've got to like snake through and be very mindful, completely present, completely focused and aware to not accidentally trip wire one of these laser, alarm bells, in which case their heist will be over. That's profound mindfulness. Is it awakened? No. Is a surgeon an awake person filled with compassion and wisdom? Heck no. They could be a total jackass most of the time and really good at their job. They also might be a lovely person. But mindfulness does not confer being a good human. You can be a really negative, grumpy, hostile person and be a heck of a mindfulness practitioner. Most aren't, but listen to the point here. Mindfulness is not enough, or the Buddha would have taught mindfulness, one factor of awakening. Would have been a much shorter class. He taught 37, and that's on an exhaustive list of all the things we need to cultivate, all the muscles we need to strengthen, the flexibility, to use a fitness analogy. We need strength in our muscles. We need flexibility in our joints, bones, and muscles. We need cardiovascular fitness, stamina. We need the ability to run really fast and to go endurance. We need multiple things to be a fit human being. We need multiple things to have a fit, awake, aware mind. So it's not the one factor of enlightenment. Now, in this list of 7, mindfulness is the first one, not the most important, but it comes first. Then there are 6 more, which I went through in the meditation, and I'm going to teach a wee bit about right now. The second of the 7 factors of awakening is Dhamma-vicaya. Dhamma-vicaya, which is variously translated as investigation of states or curiosity. I like that word. I think a lot of us resonate with it. Curiosity or investigation of states. This is where we don't just be mindful of the breath. I took you then into saying, can you become a bit curious about the breath? What is the quality of this single breath? Some of the traditional teachings is the in-breath short, medium, or long? Is the out breath of this single breath short, medium, or long? Because the next breath may be different. Is there a gap between the in breath and the out breath or not? If so, what type of gap? Is there a gap between the out breath and the in breath? If not, fine. If so, what type of gap? And then curiosity of the state of mind that is meditating and being aware. Is there a warmth and a positivity to the quality of mind? Is the mind neutral, neither feeling pleasant nor unpleasant in this breath? Because it may change in half a breath. Neutral, neutral, pleasant, pleasant, unpleasant, 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 neutral, unpleasant, pleasant. This is a noting practice that many of you have done, and the rest of you will if you stick with me, because it's a useful noting practice. The second factor of awakening is investigation of states, the breath itself, the states of the mind, while practicing mindfulness of breath. That's the second of the 7. The third is energy. Virya is the Pali word. energy, enthusiasm, or effort are various translations of this third factor. And in the guided practice, I said, can you apply a little bit more effort, kind of tighten things up a little bit, try a little harder to ask that mind to focus on breath, to become curious about the quality of breath and mind, to be in the present. So instead of just, I'm going to watch my breath and this feels how it feels, there's a little more, no, Cheryl, I really want to watch the breath. Yeah, but I'd like to think about tomorrow's grocery list. Nope, back to the breath. So more effort, more enthusiasm, more energy. Kick it up a notch. Try harder. Stop being sloppy might be an admonition from a more wrathful teacher. Get it together. Don't be sloppy with the mind. Don't let the mind run away. Now, the mind, an untrained mind, and all of our minds are relatively untrained, wants to go into daydream or planning. It wants to go into the future or the past. That's neither bad nor good. But apply effort when you notice it happening. You might be caught in a daydream or a plan for a minute or 3 minutes or 6 minutes or 10 minutes before you realize you've been actively planning your bathroom renovation instead of meditating. But in that moment of realizing, oh my goodness, I've been planning my bathroom renovation instead of meditating, that gives you a chance to wake up, begin again, and refresh your energy, your enthusiasm. So we've got mindfulness, we've got curiosity, or investigation. What is the quality of this breath, this body? Then we've got effort. Kick it up a notch. Don't be a sloppy, lazy meditator would be another way to say it. Then we've got pleasure, or it's called piti, P-I-T-I, which is translated as zest, joy, pleasure, rapture. We can also use the word sukha, which is one of my favorite words. Many of you know my larger dog is named Sukha after this quality of happy joy mind. The fourth factor of awakening is, believe it or not, as I said in the guiding, the mind can feel wildly pleasurable as we meditate. Many of us don't experience that very much in the beginning, and sometimes not for a while. What we experience is mindfulness and meditation are really hard. It's difficult, and I kind of slog through trying to pay attention to my breath while my mind races around, and then maybe I get one focused breath and then I'm off for 20. Oh, it's hard, and I can't wait for the bell to ring, and my knee hurts and my neck is sore. Very, very common experiences. Even with all that going on, as you begin to investigate these qualities, I assure you, you can have a busy, restless mind and or a sore body and still experience some pleasure, rapture, or joy in the meditation. I very much look forward to those of you who don't believe me experiencing that, because it will really give you some confidence and some more hopefulness around your meditation. That it doesn't just have to be, I have to meditate because that's good for me. And you sit down and you do 20 or 30 minutes of mindfulness and it's kind of gruesome and difficult. And then you say, yay me, I did it. Yep, a lot of times we just got to do it. As my personal trainer at the gym says, there's 3 steps. I may not remember them all. Oh yeah, show up, do the work, work hard. And he often says, show up, do the work, even if it sucks, work hard. That's it. That's how you train. You show up, you do the work, even if it sucks, and you train hard. Same as meditation. And sometimes you show up and the workout's really fun and good and you train hard. But that fourth quality is one that the majority of meditators I've met and taught neglect. They don't look for the pleasant. They don't look for the zest, the rapture, the pleasurable, the joy in the meditation. And it doesn't have to be hopped up pleasure and joy, although that can certainly happen. Great states of physical or mental bliss. But it can be very gentle. It can just be like, just a sweet, vaguely positive quality to the mind, or a sweet, vaguely positive quality to the breath that feels nice. But here, in exploring these factors of awakening in your life and in your meditation, you start to seek it. You start to be, I don't know, I'm thinking of Elmer Fudd from the old cartoons. I'm hunting rabbits. He's looking around with his shotgun for rabbits. Here, you're looking around without a shotgun, with the shotgun of awakening, for pleasurable states, the rabbits, the rats of pleasurable states. Seek and ye shall find, says a certain wise book. So if you take nothing else out of tonight's class, please take this. when I meditate, remember to look for pleasurable moments. Remember to look for the pleasant, the pleasurable, the joy, no matter how subtle, in at least one of those dozens and dozens of breaths. And let's take this away from meditation, please, and take it to life, to your work, to your play, to your relationship, to your parenting, to the emails you need to write tomorrow. Can you look for the pleasant? Can you look for the pleasurable? Can you look for the parts you enjoy? Can you choose to focus more on the positive than the negative? This is one of the greatest life and mind trainings of all time. And in my view, it's not taught nearly enough by meditation teachers in the West. Mindfulness is not enough. You have a lot of grim mindfulness people who haven't yet been introduced to the teachings of investigation, curiosity, effort, and pleasure in their meditation. Now, I said that mindfulness was like the fulcrum of the 7. And think of a teeter-totter or a seesaw. 3 of these factors, 3 of the other 6 factors are active. We put some energy. We have to do them. We have to take action. And 3 of them are more passive or non-active. These were the 3 active ones. Literally, investigation. That's an active thing. We need to actively notice and investigate our meditation, our breath, or our states. That's the second one. Mindfulness is first. The third one is energy or effort. Literally in the name, it's saying this is an active quality of meditation or life where we're putting in effort. We're making an effort. The third is pleasure, rapture, joy. Again, that's active. It's got some energy to it. It's got some life. It's got some flow. It's got some dynamism to it. Then we move into the latter 3 of the 7 factors of awakening or awakened mind, and they're more passive. Active, passive, mindfulness in the middle. They are tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. I'm going to take them briefly one at a time. So the 5th factor after mindfulness, investigation or curiosity, effort or energy, and pleasure, joy, or zest is tranquility. You'll remember as I bring that up, I think, in the guided practice off the top tonight, I said, at some point, can you just let all that go and just notice any qualities of peacefulness or tranquility in the mind or body, in the meditation, in the life? And I said, even if the mind is very agitated, even if the body is very uncomfortable, there is still peacefulness underneath those storms. This is a really important teaching because a lot of us assume, based in our life experience so far, that tranquility means I just feel really calm and peaceful. That's certainly one form of tranquility and perhaps the most easily recognized. But you can also access tranquility when you're very upset, you're very angry, anxious, frightened, grief-stricken. In all of that consternation, there is still a fundamental quiet. And more advanced practices help us access that quiet in the movement. So I want to put that out there. So of the latter 3 of the 7 factors, the first is tranquility. The next one is concentration. Here, we're really talking about that funnel. You know, imagine a funnel. When we fill up the hummingbird feeder, we make up the sugar water, and then we use a funnel to put in the narrow neck of the hummingbird feeder to pour the water into the big part of the funnel and narrow it down to the small part of the funnel. You all know how a funnel works. Why did I just explain that? Concentration is like the tip of the funnel. So with mindfulness, we might have a bit more of an open mindfulness of breath and many associated factors in the present moment as the body's breathing. Concentration is, it's tightened, it's sharpened, it's more focused. It's the ability to tighten that meditation by asking the mind to really attend. Seems funny that it's a passive quality, but what it is something that concentration. How many of you have tried, even tonight, to really concentrate on one breath? And how'd that work out for you? Oddly, when we try to concentrate, we usually fail. Weirdly, to get good focused concentration happening, often we need to relax a little, be quiet, tranquility, and then drop the concentration in. This may be a little hard to grasp. It's either easier to experience than to hear. It's easier to experience than have a concept around. But for now, I'll briefly teach, because some of you are familiar with the teachings of the jhanic absorptions. There are 4 form jhanic absorptions and 4 formless jhanic absorptions. That strange word some of you have not heard is jhana, 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 which is where the mind becomes so locked and loaded focused that it is undistracted for a period of moments or many minutes or longer, and things can come and go, and there's no awareness of them to most of a degree. And there's a lot of joy, calm, and equanimity. These factors overlap each other. Concentration is where the meditation is easy. You're locked and loaded. You're not distracted. I'll say more about that in another teaching, but for now, that is the 6th factor of the 7, is the factor of concentration. Also, samadhi. Samadhi, a familiar word to many of you, is the Pali word of focusing on one object with a steadiness of mind. Sometimes it's said an unperturbability of mind, locked in, scanning, Vikara and Vitakka, various qualities of jhanas we'll get into in another class sometime, where the mind is sort of mindful, but a bit wavery, and focused, but a bit sloppy, and then kind of lands. And without efforting, the mind is concentrated and locked, like a fly to fly paper. It's not going anywhere. The 7th of the 7 is equanimity. Equanimity, this marvelous, challenging, beautiful, wild quality of being with things as they are, not trying to change them, not trying to influence them, a quality of gracefulness of heart, I would say, gracefulness of mind, where we don't battle reality, we don't try to squash reality into a little box, we don't try to direct reality to be what we want it to be. We accept with grace and compassion that which is. Here on Vancouver Island, a few of you may be joining from off island. I think a few even from further away, but here on Vancouver Island, we're well aware that just a couple of days ago, we were asked to tighten up our social gatherings. We were asked to start wearing masks out of the house. We were asked to only socialize with people in our direct household, a tightening of the liberties we'd had a little bit here, some wise COVID respectful liberties. We're now having things narrow again. Some people are finding that really distressing. It's tiring. It's a season where people look forward to gathering. They look forward to parties, family gatherings, Christmas gatherings. We're not quite clear what the wise directives will be in a month, but we can be with things as they are, as opposed to fighting them, and then we will suffer less. We can be all upset that we may or may not be able to gather with family over the holiday season, or we can accept it with grace, because COVID is a virus that has no personal agenda. COVID is not out to harm you or stop you from celebrating Christmas. It is a sentient virus that's trying to survive. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just shooting you with some fact cannons. So when we fight against, this is unfair, even though we know it's not personally unfair, or this shouldn't be happening, or maybe you disagree with some of the suggestions, we're each allowed to have our own views. The fact is, it's much more graceful and far less upsetting if we simply say, okay, I'm going to learn the new regulations, and that's what I'm going to do until I'm told it's wise or safe to do something different. When we don't resist reality, when we don't fight the law, I fought the law and the law won, as the great old song says, I fought the law and the law won. When we fight reality, reality will always win. The reality is there's a virus and it's spreading, and it's wise to circle our wagons a little bit and keep each other safe. I personally know I have one patient whose 69-year-old brother in Toronto died from COVID. I have a dear friend who found out yesterday their 35-year-old daughter in Langley, just on the mainland, has tested positive despite doing all the wise things that many of us are doing. Staying home, washing your hands, wearing a mask. She's a stay-at-home mom. She hasn't been out and about. She's COVID positive. The fact is, it's a real thing. Equanimity says how we deal with that is up to us. If we can coexist with the truth of reality, right now we're being asked to limit our social engagements in the hope we can bring down illness and death, which is a heck of a good motivation if you ask any of us, then it's unfortunate. It's inconvenient. We've had to let go of some things. 24 hours before I took my mom down to Victoria for a very carefully planned 79th birthday celebration. COVID guidelines. We were renting 1,000 square foot suite at a hotel so that my four family members could come and we could be in our safe 6 in our bubble and have a takeout food meal, not even go to a restaurant. The spa was COVID friendly. She could get a big spa treatment. I had ordered the best cake from the best bakery I've ever had the pleasure to go to in Victoria. Anyone, when you're there one time, when it's safe and wise to do so, Patisserie Danielle, my personal favorite baker in the world that I've yet sampled their wares. The cake was ordered, the croissants were ordered, and so on. Thursday morning, I planned to pick my mom up Friday morning at 11 o'clock and head off for a 48-hour extravaganza. Thursday at 3 o'clock, new restrictions came in and we chose to cancel the whole thing. We were mildly disappointed, but neither of us freaked out. And my mom, kudos to her, she didn't freak out either. She was mildly disappointed, but she said it's the wise thing to do. It's what we need to do. I'm disappointed, but hopefully we'll do something next year when it's safe to do so. So that's a little bit of equanimity. Be with things as they are. When we fight them, we create suffering. When we push against reality, we create suffering. When we cling and try to control reality, we create suffering. When we say, oh, poor me, my birthday is ruined, we create suffering. When we say, I really wanted that chocolate raspberry flourless torte from Patisserie Danielle, we create suffering. So that's equanimity, the 7th of the 7. So we've got mindfulness. We've got the 3 active factors of investigation and curiosity, effort and enthusiasm, PT, zest, joy, pleasure. Then we've got the calming factors of tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And I want to share with you a little analogy, if I can find it, to help us understand the interplay of the 3 meditation factors. These you will hear repeated when I cover the Eightfold Path next class, because 3 of the 8 are mindfulness, concentration, and tranquility. But this analogy is often shared classically. I thought it might be helpful. Imagine 3 kids going out to play. We'll say they're boys. 3 boys are going out to play and they see a tree. And they see a tree with beautiful, delicious, ripe fruit right at the top, and it's a reasonably tall tree. They want to gather the fruit and enjoy this beautiful succulent fruit, but it's too high. It's beyond the reach of even the tallest boy. So they try to figure out what to do, and they come up with an idea. One of them bends down on his hands and knees and offers his back. The tallest boy climbs up onto the back of the medium boy, and he reaches up. He can almost reach the fruit, but it's a bit, wobbly, and he's a little afraid of falling, so he's a bit too tentative. And then the 3rd boy comes and offers that standing tall boy, who's standing on the back of the medium boy, he offers him his shoulder, which means the standing boy can steady himself by putting his hand on the shoulder of the other boy, standing on the back of boy number 1, and he can reach up and he can gather the succulent fruit, he can bring it down, and they can share the fruits of awakening. This represents tranquility, concentration, and mindfulness in the following way. To unify our mind in meditation, mindfulness is not enough. One of the teachings tonight. We need to have effort and we need to have energy, and that's what these boys apply, effort and energy. And the boy who bends over and offers his back is effort. He's saying, here you go. I've got a plan. I'm bringing effort to this problem, and I think this can help. The boy who stands up and reaches, the tall boy, he's concentration. Now, concentration can't do its job without effort. Generally, it takes effort to concentrate on anything. A homework project, a work project, seasoning the stew absolutely correctly. We have to pay attention. We have to apply some effort. So the kneeling down boy with his back is effort, energy, enthusiasm. He's given it. He's putting something into it. Concentration is standing on top, but it's wavering. Do you ever notice that? Do you ever notice in your meditation, your concentration wavers? You need to stabilize your concentration, or it's thinking about tomorrow, and it's thinking about your sore ankle, and it's wondering if that rat's going to show up because it's still in my freaking house somewhere. And it's reaching for the fruits of awakening, of calm, of peace, of beauty, of compassion, of equanimity, but it's not quite there because it needs to be stabilized. What can stabilize your concentration? Well, mindfulness. Mindfulness. I want to concentrate. I want to concentrate. Well, really be in the present. Simply observe the coming and going of the breath. When the mind wanders, bring it back. That is the stabilizing factor for concentration. So you can think of that. When right concentration has support, it's empowered by right effort, right? The intentionality, the enthusiasm, and it's balanced by right mindfulness. Then concentration can draw in all the scattered thoughts and the distraction and lock and load and reach the goal of the fruit of a calm, clear state. So there's a little story for you, and you'll hear more about it when I cover the Eightfold Path in the next class. Within the next few days, I will finalize my schedule for December. I have a number of various things I'm teaching, etc. And I will announce, I think, at least 2 classes, probably on Monday nights again, but I'd like to teach a couple classes in December if you would be interested in that. And there's a lovely turnout tonight. So clearly this feels of value, I hope, to many of us. So to review, you arrive and you got a couple of maps. One of them says, if you study and follow and spend effort and train and learn about and play with and share these 37 qualities, they will help you lead towards a life of compassion, forgiveness, wisdom, equanimity, joy, happiness, thoughtfulness. You'll deal with the inevitable ups and downs of life much more gracefully. When your plans are all changed 24 hours beforehand, you'll let it go without clinging, and you'll have a lovely Zoom call where everybody raised a glass to my mom, and we dropped off balloons and flowers outside her house, and it was beautiful. We made do with what we had, equanimity. Or we can go for the basic map. Most of us inadvertently inherited by being born in the blessed place of Canada, in North America. We inherited a map that I would put forward as flawed. The map that said, study hard, get a good job, pay your bills, find someone lovely to share your life with, maybe have a kid or two, be generous, and you should die happy. It's not a terrible map. It's quite a sensible sounding map, but we've been following that map for decades. Some of us, a lot of decades. A few of you, maybe even more decades than me. How's it working out for us? Doesn't mean life is terrible. I consider myself a very lucky, a very privileged, and a very blessed human being. But boy, oh boy, if I don't follow the map of training the mind and heart, if I don't cultivate some of these 37 accidentally or on purpose, diligently or sloppily, in various ways at various times, the map I've got isn't delivering the type of peacefulness, compassion, love, and happiness that I thought it would. That's why we're all here. That's why you're listening to this simple class tonight. And that's why, in your own ways, and I encourage each of us to kick our effort up a bit, you are meditating, reading Dharma, listening to Dharma, attending retreats, or some variation thereof, because the mind is all we've got, and happiness and peacefulness lies within. So that's the 37 factors of enlightenment, briefly mentioned. And then tonight we dove in on the 7 factors of awakening, of awakened mind. So we'll finish off with just a few minutes of quiet practice, and then I'll ring the bell and have a dedication of the merit. So perhaps closing the eyes, touch of a smile on the lips. Just noticing whatever is present to be noticed in the body, in the breath, in the quality of the mind, from calm to busy, from pleasant to unpleasant. There's no right or wrong. It's an observing of what is. And taking 2 or 3 mindful, present breaths. And then for 2 or 3 breaths, be curious about your own direct experience. For 2 or 3 breaths, just slightly increase your effort, your energy, your enthusiasm. For 2 or 3 breaths, bring your awareness to any pleasantness, pleasure, joy, happiness, or good feelings in body or mind. For 2 or 3 breaths, bring awareness to peacefulness or tranquility, even if there's a lot of storm on the surface. Can we touch any peacefulness or tranquility underneath? For 2 or 3 breaths, can you tighten your concentration? Reach for the fruit at the top of the tree. And for 2 or 3 breaths, can we simply experience with equanimity whatever's arising and passing away, not trying to change a thing. Well, thank you very much for joining each other and me this evening. And I'll close with a dedication in a moment. But just a reminder that even when the cat of your busy mind releases a rat of unwholesomeness into your head, you can choose how to react to it. You can choose to gently and kindly and compassionately move the rat along and set it free. We don't need to let circumstances, bam, this happened, bam, this is here, bam, that changed, direct our experience. That's easier said than done. Be very kind to yourself. Be very gentle to yourself. This is a lifelong, maybe many lifetimes of training. I fail all the time, but I succeed some of the time as well. And the more I spend time with beautiful beings like you, doing beautiful things like we've just done the last 19 minutes, I want to thank each of you for being here, for giving yourself the gift, for giving me the opportunity to share with you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'll close with the dedication of merit. I suspect we'll meet again in 2 weeks on a Monday again, but we'll send word on that in the next few days. I will have tamed my schedule. By the merit of this strengthening activity of gathering together, of saying hello in the chat box, of meditating, of studying the Dharma, may there be a cessation of all rats. Not really, I want rats to be well and happy, but all the rats in our mind, all the unwholesome, busy, destructive states, may they cease. May the beautiful qualities of awakened mind arise. And a prayer of what's called a Tashi prayer, one of my favorites. May the day be well and the night be well and the weekend hours bring happiness too. May the day and night, may always the day and night always be well. And by the blessing of the triple gem, may all be auspicious. Thank you, Barbara. I'm delighted you're re-inspired to start meditating again. Who's going to join Barbara? I challenge each and every one of you to meditate daily for the next 14 days for even 5 minutes. Daily for the next 14 days for even 5 minutes, and simply follow tonight's path. Simply sit and do 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on mindfulness, 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on curiosity and investigation, 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on effort, 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on pleasure and joy, 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on tranquility, 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on concentration, and 2 or 3 breaths, focusing on equanimity. 5 minutes, 14 days. I challenge all of us to do that as a minimum, and then we can share that in our next class. Thank you all. I'm so pleased this was helpful. It's delighted to be here with you, and I look very much forward to gathering again in this virtual classroom, and eventually in a real classroom, and eventually in retreat together. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you. And for now, I bid you adieu.